When I was talking to Marty last night, I was like, okay, there's a couple of them that I didn't recognize. He's like, the one in the third with a mustache, the one in the fourth seat with a mustache, like the one in the second row with the mustache. Dids is, yeah. That's when.
So,
Ready?
I'd like to call our August 20th, 2026 Chamber Council meeting to order. Start with the adoption of the agenda. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion to close the meeting to the public. Okay.
Move that council move into a closed meeting to discuss matters covered by the community charter under sections 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. C, labor relations or other employee relations, and F, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communication necessary for that purpose.
For Almeida, any discussion? All in favor? We are adjourned. Okay, we're going to reconvene our council meeting. We'll start with the territorial acknowledgement that we're holding this in the traditional lands of the Kalama Nation. And we'll move to public input period. So subject to the rules of conduct, members of the audience, up to 3 members, have an opportunity to provide comment for a maximum of 2 minutes on one of these 3 items: legislative matters, committee recommendations, or new business. Anybody wish to come forward from the audience? Introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. My name is Diane Sparks. I will be speaking with regard to the letter from the Mayor of Gibson to Randeen Neal. The Mayor of Gibson and Sunshine Coast Ferry Advisory Committee recently made an important point in a letter to Randeen Neal. Ferry service has not kept pace with growth. Powell River to Vancouver's route, contractually minimal, has changed little since 2003. While the Southern Sunshine Coast population has grown approximately 29%, visitor spending has risen from 77.6 million in 2007 to 256 million in 2024. That's about 230%. Tourism is vital to our economy, but residents should not be unable to get home or reach essential appointments because their only transportation route is full. For Powell River, the ferry is our highway. At our town hall meeting, residents raised serious concerns about motorcycle access, having to purchase reservations to ensure travel for medical appointments, the additional cost of reservations, residents commuting to jobs on Vancouver Island unable to get home, and local businesses losing customers because of ferry standby changes. The province is now preparing for performance term 7, beginning April 1st, 2028. If ferry service levels are going to be reassessed to reflect today's population and demand, then Powell River must be part of that conversation. And the public has spoken. More than 6,000, we have more than 6,000 people that have signed our petition now, calling for priority boarding for Powell River residents. Population has grown, tourism has grown, demand has grown, ferry policy must catch up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the audience? Do we have anybody online? All right. Well, we're going to move now to general matters. And I am pleased that Mayor Dan Law of the District of Tofino is here this evening. Now, just by way of background, for the last couple of years, we here in Powell River at our council have had discussions about housing and the lack of it, and pickleball and the importance of pickleball for social development and economic development. And having attended the ICE meetings a number of times, I was advised that Tofino has done some very interesting initiatives to deal with housing and the lack thereof of housing, and also have shown good decision-making in providing pickleball players, both those living in Tofino and those that care to come to Tofino as tourists, and have seen a very positive response to what they've done. So I'd like to welcome Mayor Law and look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't get to call other mayors Your Worship very often, so I thought I'd do it officially as an address. Thanks for inviting me, Mayor and Council. It's great to be here, and it's great to meet staff and a couple of the residents of Powell River. Powell River is stunningly beautiful, I have to say. Everybody, I'm from Tofino, most people know Tofino. If you don't know Tofino, you head to Ucluelet, and then when you hit the junction, you turn right. So, but it's great to be in Powell River. What a stunning place. And it's great to be here to share the Tofino Housing Corporation process and Tofino Housing Corporation success. It's been a very, very good success so far. It is the Tofino Housing Corporation, I'm going to get ahead here, has had a long run. It was first envisioned in the early 2000s, 2005. It was established, but then over the next 7 or so years, just couldn't get any forward momentum. Council couldn't make a decision. There was significant kickback from the town at the time. Everything from businesses should build their own accommodation for employees. People should work hard for their own housing, and just a general distaste for any kind of government intervention in housing. And the idea presented consistently was that the market would solve the problem. In 2005, there was a negative vacancy rate in Tofino. People were living in campers and trailers and garages and tents and sleeping bags outside. And the median value home price in Tofino was about $375,000. 2012, it was the Tofino Housing Corporation was dissolved. 2015, 2016, it was readily apparent that the market developers were not solving the problem at all. There was an increased vacancy or a negative vacancy rate, significant number of people living on the streets in their vans and campers. These are employees, people working at shops. And so the council decided that they had to act. And so the Tofino Housing Corporation was started up again with the intent of building housing for anybody who called Tofino home. By this time, the median value house price was about the same as it is here. It was about $576,000 per median value single detached home. And I believe that Powell River right now has single detached homes, and median value is about $580,000, and I'll show that later in a slide. But it's an important point that we'll come back to talk about. And so 2017 it started up again, and in the last 9 years, Tofino has had some great success. Well, I'm going to share in a sec here. But what is it? So the Tofino Housing Corporation is a corporation owned 100% by the District of Tofino. So up here you can see the District of Tofino provides free land. That's a sticking point for people, DCC waivers, and some staff support when needed. But the land really is just transferred to a Tofino corporation. So the Tofino retains 100% of the land. And the Tofino acts as a land steward, secures funding, manages the partnerships, navigates all of the ins and outs of housing development that the district staff just do not want to do, nor should they do. They're not, district staff are not professional developers, but the THC hires an executive director who is a professional developer, and that's their job. And then the THC is partnered, in this case, with, in the past, several projects with Catalyst Community Development Society, which is also a nonprofit developer, and build market housing, or below market housing, sorry, non-market housing. And they generally come in 15 to 28% below what a market developer can build. And the Tofino Housing Corporation and the District of Tofino gets to decide what kind of housing, how it looks, the makeup of the rooms, and where it goes. The first project that we did was a townhome, and here it is right here. And it's 14 rental units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The land was readily available, owned by the district. It was easily developed, and 100% funded by the government, whether through BC Housing, CMHC, and our own MRDT, which is Municipal Regional District Tax, which I know Council is aware of. And we're able to use 100% of the tax, the hotel tax, that short-term rentals bring in. That all goes to help operate and run both the operational and capital end of our Tofino Housing Corporation. This development here, you know, Tofino's 2,500 people at this time. Housing is in such a crisis that without action by council, it's conceivable that our hospital wouldn't be able to run, our schools wouldn't be able to run, our district itself wouldn't be able to run without some kind of action, because we are so low on housing. In fact, a young doctor and his family were able to get into this particular project several years ago. He was able to finish his residency and will be able to come back to Tofino and work as a physician. In fact, this particular unit allowed this doctor and his family, his wife, to transition into buying a home in Tofino. It might not seem like a big deal in Powell River, where there's 15,000 people, but in a 2,500 population town, it is a significant deal. After that, we were able to move on to larger projects, 2 apartment buildings you can see here. This was much more contentious with town, I got to say, because that is a first growth forest, and it was a hard sell for some people. But the housing crisis was so great that people in the end were able to see this through. And between the 2 projects, these 2 apartment buildings here and the previous one, Creekside, it's called, Tofino is now housing approximately 9 to 10% of our population. And you can see that affordable housing, because these come with BC Housing, CMHC, they have to be affordable. At least a part of them has to be affordable. And there's usually a percentage. So 30, 50, 20 is one you often see. 30% affordable market, 50% rent geared to income, and then 20% are deep subsidies. And, just with these 3 projects alone, the district was able to take unused land, was able to convert it, build, bring in substantial funding for both capital and operational. And in the end, we were able to increase our property assets by well over $12 million. And in fact, these properties now pay tax. They pay property tax, and they're bringing in over $50,000 annually. So it's just been a tremendous win. And because we have the corporation set up and it's running very smoothly, we were able to move swiftly. In this particular project here, it wasn't called a project, I guess it's an acquisition, is that we have a 4-unit seniors housing villa. It's been operating for probably 40 years or more. And, I ran into this fellow, actually, he's sitting there at the doorway in that picture on the street, and he was quite distressed. And it turns out that this villa had been perhaps poorly managed, and it was on the brink of insolvency and would have to be sold. So because I had this housing corporation going, a great relationship with the executive director, I just simply gave him a call, and he called Dave. And within a few months, the housing corporation was able to buy this for $1, remortgage it with BC Housing, bring all of the rents into the SAFER program, reducing rents for the tenants, fix all of the problems, bring it up to snuff. And the district now has that asset. And in the next decade or two, we'll be able to build more stories of senior housing in Tofino. So it's kind of a spin-off of Tofino Housing Corporation. If you have a corporation, it not only allows you to do this without having to get council and staff too involved, it allows a significant amount of leverage for government grants, and that governments like to work with councils who have corporations. They like to work because they like to work nimbly and fast. If you wouldn't believe that, I know you're all politicians and everybody. If you work with politicians, you wouldn't believe they like to work fast, but they do. They want to work with organizations that know how to build and have proven that they know how to build. They want to work with people and organizations that are going to give them a return on their investment, and that's what the Tofino Housing Corporation does. Right now, we're targeting 150 total rental units, 30 price-restricted, resident-restricted units by 2030. We've got 2 projects on the go. We do not have a lot of land, unfortunately, like Powell River. We had to scrimp and scrounge and find a few parcels of land and identified 3. One we actually bought with the Growing Communities Fund to save our infrastructure, and then we said, now that we bought that to save our infrastructure access, why don't we turn it into affordable housing too? And so we have an 8-plex on the go, which is shovel ready, and we've got another 21 unit below market housing that includes a seaside park, permanent infrastructure access for our water, and 3-bedroom units for families, which we just do not have in Tofino, and it's caused a bit of a crisis itself. And there's future capacity. And one of the things that we've done with the Tofino Housing Corporation is because it's been a success, and we know that it's taken a long time to get here, and so we've made it part of our vision and mission with the Tofino Housing Corporation to try to share it with other communities that may be where we were several years ago, and they're trying to solve problems. And the thing about municipal governments is that everybody's kind of siloed. You know, nobody knows necessarily what everybody else is doing. And so I wanted to fix that and share the success with other communities so that you don't have to go through all of the ups and downs and questions, and get right to the point and build some housing. That's the end of that. That's the end of that presentation. I do have another slide, but I think I'm running over. So why don't I just stop there and go for some. Oh, I should tell you one thing. I forgot actually. Let's go back here. 2022. There you go. Remember how I said 2017, the median value of a single detached home was about the same as it is now in Powell River. 2017 is not a long time ago. The single detached home value in Tofino right now, average, is about 1.5 million. Yeah. If we didn't have this, if council hadn't decided to do this and taken the step to do this when they did, Tofino would not be running now like it is. It would not be able to function the same as it is. Business would be struggling. There'd be tremendous pressure. And so thank goodness council had the foresight and the courage to take this action when they did, and we get to benefit from it today. I'm not suggesting Powell River prices are going to go up to 1.5. Happened to us.
Open for questions if anybody has. Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you. You need to stop telling people how beautiful we are here, because we would like to keep things a bit more affordable for local folks. So I always like that saying, you know, the best time to build housing was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. The Housing Corporation first got set up in 2005, and your first completed project was 2022, right? So it took a while. And I think about some of the pressures that we might feel related to startup costs, like hiring. You know, you had a professional developer, all the pre-development costs that often aren't funded by all these grant streams. You've got 650K in MRTD funding. The amount here is in the 100,000 level. And so the scale of what we have available to us is a little bit different. I'm wondering if you have advice on like the financial feasibility, because this is something that this council has over many years. We've had many meetings and gone to many sessions and are pretty keen on it. But sometimes like the math looks really hard, but without that investment, it will just get harder. And so any advice given the difference in scale that we're dealing with here?
Yeah, I mean, that's good. That's a really good point. The startup costs, what does it cost to run it? It needs money to run. We're getting $650,000 from OAP, which is Online Accommodation Platform, MRDT, every year. That's not what it was back then. I think when we started out, it was in maybe the hundreds, and it dropped down during COVID to significantly lower. About, if I'm just off the top of my head, it was maybe like $80,000 there until it got reconciled at the end of the year. But the actual operational cost to run it just for administration is not that great. I mean, we have one part-time employee, and that's that's under $50,000 a year, and we have a contract with City Spaces. Ian Scott, who was our originally ED, exceptional person, and so we bring him on for contracts, and he'll take on a project like. Oh, sorry, this is the next, that's the next one, like this one. So he did that one and rolled that project cost into the total pro forma. And a lot of that was actually covered by funding from the government anyway. So there's significant home funding and there's significant startup funding for councils and communities that mean business, right? And so, I looked at Powell River and actually have I did another slide, but I'm probably going to go over, so I'll probably skip it. But, Powell River doesn't have the same MRDT. It's not an RMI community. I'm not sure what you get for MRDT. But Tofino is a tourism community. That's how we make a lot of our money. Powell River has a community forest, I believe, and it's a society that makes a significant amount of money, usually in the millions, I think. And so if you were to compare, you could say, well, Powell River has its own non-property tax revenue that can go to whatever council decides and the community decides they want it to. And so if you have funds, and if housing is a priority and you think it's a crisis for you for whatever reason, then you do have funds. And it's once you get rolling, staff aren't involved except on the board. Council, the Tofino Housing Corporation comes to council and asks for, say, a zoning change or a waive of 50% DCCs or something like that. And so that's really how council and staff work it. The corporation just takes care of itself. So that's what I'd say about that.
I'm curious, Chair, if there is consent to just take a peek at some of the subsequent slides. I know we are over time, but curious if council would be willing to do that.
Senses, yes.
Giving me more time. Okay.
Came so far.
Well, nobody's throwing anything at me from the stand. So I did actually I did read your reports, and I had a look at Campbell or Powell River, and I know there are some significant differences. And I thought that council probably would say, well, we're not the same. We're very different. And so I put together this case. It's not a report from staff, so take it for what it is. It's a visiting mayor with who's been to Powell River a couple times and knows how to look on the internet. So it's still, protecting economy viability, unlocking housing supply, and leveraging municipal equity. That's what you're doing. That's what we did. Powell River is very different than Tofino. You have excellent health care. You've got recreation infrastructure. We do not. We don't have a pool. We don't have an indoor recreation center at all. We don't even own a public ball field. You've got excellent resources for your kids and teens. Tier 1 civic infrastructure. You've got great education, early childhood, public independent schools, post-secondary and trades engines. You're fantastic. So I shouldn't say that. I heard that you don't want people to come here. You want people to move here.
Only up until 14,999 people live.
That's right. That's right. So you have to pay extra RCMP. I got it. Well, you know what? We're talking about housing. So I did a little housing breakdown. Here's your median value, single detached home, 580,000. Seems like a lot. Unless you're from Tofino, then I think, oh my gosh, I'd buy two if I had the money. And then the tax. Tax always comes up. It's almost election time. Everybody likes to talk about taxes. And so not only are your houses, they're actually higher. The price to income ratio is higher than the global suggested limit for affordability. So they're not affordable. But your taxes actually are really quite affordable. And you can see here, I've got some numbers up there for regional pass-throughs. Municipal tax share is about $264 a month, which is less than a cell phone, high-speed home internet, and streaming subscriptions. And across Canada, it's actually very low. And I actually upped these a little bit. So I thought this would be interesting stuff. I'd like to see this too. But I actually was a little conservative. The actual monthly cost of property tax on a median value home is lower than this if you take into consideration the over 65 homeowner grant. So what does it do? It means you got a great town, you got some housing. Do you have any problems that you need to solve with the Housing Corporation? Yeah, you sure do, I think. You got some problems. It is still unaffordable. It appears that 3-bedroom family rental stock is virtually non-existent. Now, you guys know more than I do. And it also appears that it's impacting perhaps essential services like hospitals and people coming into Powell River who you need to run Powell River and deliver all of those healthcare, education, recreation services. And so you do have a deficit. And the reality is that the market isn't delivering and probably won't. That's what Tofino happened at Tofino. We thought it would, and it just didn't. Because the market wants to build 1-bedroom studio suites. They want to get the numbers and they want to maximize their ROI. Plus, you got a demographic skew. You got a lot of people here. Tofino has a huge number. We have double the average of young people than BC, double. We don't have families and teens and their parents because they have nowhere to live, and we don't have a lot of those services that they want. Powell River has a very large demographic of seniors, and it appears who are in older multi-level single detached homes. But it doesn't appear they have much where to go. And so they're stuck. This is my hunch from doing a quick through, is so you really need some place for seniors to go so that they can stay in Powell River, so that this can be a birth to end of life town where they can invest their whole lives. And you also need somewhere for essential service workers to come with their families. Maybe they're in transition, like the doctor that came to Tofino and is now established and owns his own home and stays. If we didn't have that, condo townhouse, or townhome actually, he wouldn't have been able to do that. We'd be out a doctor and out a family, and his wife is actually running the school programs. And so you do have a big problem, and the market isn't going to fix it. So you have a good, you've got good opportunity for a housing corporation. You got lots of land, and you have funding. You have non-property tax revenue that you can put towards this. So you can see a little family and workforce squeeze. Read through that. So really, in Powell River, Powell River Housing Corporation, if that's something you're interested, would unlock a missing middle. If council and the corporation, the community wanted to, it could be like it is in Tofino, an essential asset. It is arm's length, it's nonprofit, and if it was ever to dissolve, Tofino Housing Corporation was ever to dissolve, all of that land goes back to the District of Tofino. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for the extra time. I will put one more plug in for pickleball for the mayor. Tofino was redoing its tennis courts, and we got basically bombarded by the pickleball crew, and who wanted pickleball. And so we said, fine, we'll look into it. And we ended up putting in a significant number of pickleball courts, part of our renovation of our downtown. And it was the best thing that I have ever seen. Just saying, is hundreds and hundreds of people use pickleball every day, from little kids all the way up to people in their 80s or maybe even older. And wow, was it cheap and successful. So there's another success story to shove on top of the Tofino Housing Corporation. That's a little plug for the Mayor's Pickleball. Anyway, there you go. That's it. That's it for me. So thanks for letting me run over time, and I can stay for a couple questions if you'd like.
Great. Councilor Armida.
I think Councilor Isaacson already handled a couple of the questions I had top of mind, so appreciate you coming. I'm guessing the pickleball courts are outdoor courts that you have, and are they shared pickleball / tennis courts, or are they independent altogether?
We kept one tennis court. Our CAO loves tennis, and there's a lot of people who play tennis, so we kept one, and then we converted the other tennis court, and we expanded the footprint a little bit just so we could fit in the pickleball courts that the community wanted, and it was the right thing. And it is outside. We're going to light them. Ucluelet, I think in our success with pickleball is kind of spilled over, and Ucluelet wants to build pickleball courts. So they have a 2-stage process where they're going to build the courts, and as the second stage, they've got a cover that goes over it. So it's not as expensive as a full indoor pickleball court would be for a little tiny town like Ucluelet, 1,900 people. But they've got enough funding, and they've found a way to do it so that it'll be it'll be all year round. Indoor, but very inexpensive. So we'll see how that goes.
Questions? Scott.
Thank you, Your Worship.
There you go.
I don't want to address too many people that way who's standing at that podium. I'm just wondering if you're, I really appreciate you coming. We have been talking about things like this for a long, long time. In previous terms, we've looked at the Whistler's initiative as well. It goes back as far as yours, pretty much, maybe even farther. They're faced with similar challenges. It certainly is interesting because housing is huge, and definitely seniors. You're targeting seniors. This is a significant question here. I'm just wondering if haven't had a chance to look over what's available on the website for Tofino Housing Corporation, but I'm wondering if your slides might be available to us. And I had another question which has slipped my mind. Yeah, basically just looking for more information.
Absolutely. I can share these slides with you, and the Tofino Housing Corporation website has lots of information. And I was going to also make a plug. The September 20th in Parksville, which is not too far away, there's a housing convention, and the chair of the Tofino Housing Corporation, fellow councillor, invited you all to come. So he said, get them to come and they can talk one-on-one. And I was also going to say, because the Tofino Housing Corporation has done a lot of work, with the terms of reference, understanding policy, and we have the connections. If staff was interested, we could introduce you to Ian Scott at City Spaces, and to have a conversation. So just so that you understand, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already been invented. You just have to tweak it for Powell River, if that's what council wants to do.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and I'm sure that we'll get back to you for further clarification. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So we'll now move to the consent agenda. Yes, Councilor Isaacs.
I'll move adoption of the August 20th, 2026 consent agenda.
Aye. Councilor Southcott. Any further discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. We'll now move to legislative matters. 11.1, the Seawalk Restoration Project. Project manager?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you mentioned, I'm here tonight to present on the Seawalk Restoration Project. I know that this is a priority project for the community and council and something that we're very excited about over in the engineering department and the city as a whole. As mentioned in my report, the purpose of this report today and presentation is to present the results of the invitation to tender, request council approval to award the construction contract to the successful proponent, present the Powell River Community Forest letter confirming its support of the Phase 2 funding as described in this report, and request council authorization to submit an application to the Build Community Strong Fund, a local impact stream in British Columbia, for grant funding to support construction of the Seawalk Restoration Project. It's the recommendation that council receive the results of tender, award the contract as recommended to Hazelwood Construction in the amount of $819,513.36 plus GST. That council receive the Powell River Community Forest letter confirming its financial contribution towards the Seawalk project in the amount of $550,000 for the Phase 2 component, for a total amount of $1.53 million. And finally, that council authorized staff to submit an application to the Build Community Strong Fund, Local Impact Stream, British Columbia, for funding and support of this project. And I do have a lot of information to throw at you guys today, so I'm just going to run through my report and include a few key items here. So as everyone, I believe, at this table is aware, and for those online, this project is conceived due to a storm surge in 2022, coinciding with a king tide, which created some pretty major weather events that caused some significant damage and erosion to the trail. It's primarily around the middle, what I understand is known as the more or less historic Phase 1 of the Seawalk that was done by the city in the early 2000s. Unfortunately, the material that was installed there is not necessarily the ideal material for that application. And it's also believed that it was more or less end dumped and not necessarily keyed in correctly, which is the reason that that section has sustained major damage where the north and south sections have not. They've all been through all the same storms over the 20 or so years of their existence. And you'll notice that those north and south sections are holding up very well, while the middle section has, all but crumbled. And so the intention for this project is to take a look at those areas roughly centered around the Westview viewpoint, as well as resurface the entire roughly 1.4 kilometer length of that trail for better accessibility for all residents of Powell River. The project started with some environmental and archaeological reviews of the proposed repair work. This was completed back in 2023. Unfortunately, there was some staff turnover around that time that put the project on hold for a little while. When I arrived in 2025, it was picked back up. At that point, we put the project out to tender for a design and engineering consultant to support the design of the project, engineering and contract administration all the way through to completion. In working with that contractor, it was determined quite quickly that some of the, I'll call them wish list items that were on the potential scope at the start of this project were quickly removed, and the scope was consolidated down to what it is now. And that's based on cost estimates, environmental archaeological requirements that were built into the project or determined along the way. As part of this city staff getting a better idea of what the actual cost of this project was, we decided that we would split it into 2 phases. These have been labeled as the critical and optional zone in our drawing package, but ultimately should be considered as phase 1 and phase 2 of this project. As I previously explained, it's all centered in that historic phase 1 section that has the end dump material that is just not holding up as well as it needs to. And the large reason that that was chosen is, again, just due to the conversations we were having with our design engineer and the cost estimates that we were receiving. It was believed at the time that tackling the entire seawalk, even the 2 zones that we were hoping for, were going to be cost prohibitive based on the funding that we had available. The initial archaeological review that was completed in 2023 assumed that all of the restoration work was going to happen from the top of the pathway and no machines would be required to enter the intertidal zone. As we got deeper into the required restoration work, we realized that that was not going to be feasible, and therefore some additional archaeological reviews were required just to ensure that we weren't encroaching on any features within the foreshore. That was attempted on December 5th of last year, but unfortunately, the tide levels did not drop low enough to expose all of the features in that intertidal zone. And therefore, the archaeologist was forced to delay until the spring when those tides reached a more optimal level, and she was actually able to survey the entire foreshore. So there was unfortunately significant delays created by that, but it was unfortunately we were fighting against the tides, which is a losing battle. After receiving our archaeological assessment on April 20th, we received a report about a month later that identified several features that our current design had conflicted with. So at that point, we went back to the design table with our engineer, put our heads together and came up with some options to avoid those conflicts. We were able to avoid all but one, and through consultation with Tom and Nation and the archaeologist, it was determined that complete avoidance of that feature was the desired path forward. And so we revised our design to accommodate that feature and went to tender as quickly as we were able. Part of the requirements for the archaeological process is she performed some updated site mapping that more specifically located the archaeological features down the beach. Previously, the entire beach up into even up the hill towards the highway there was designated as an archaeological significant zone, which is not necessarily reflective of what is actually in that area. So the work that the archaeologist was doing was to revise that mapping, bring it down to its true location, which actually did remove a good portion of that seawalk from the what's just known as more or less the red zone. Which allowed us to do the work that we were planning on doing without going through the site alteration permit process, which is upwards of a year processing time with the BC Archaeology Branch. That site mapping was sent into the BC Archaeology Branch shortly after the report was created. There's unfortunately no committed turnaround time on that response. And given the permitting times that the Archaeology Branch is typically maintaining, it's not a quick review, it's not a quick turnaround. But we did have some confidence that we would get a response before this fall. At this time, we are still waiting for that response. And so our project start date is still up for question, to be transparent. But the city has done absolutely everything we can to be ready to start when we get that green light to go. So as I mentioned, tender results, the city issued a tender in July, which closed early August. We did receive 4 compliant bids from some reputable contractors. We were actually quite pleased to see that some of the most of the submissions we received actually were quite a bit lower than the cost estimate that our engineer had put together, which is a first for me, which was very exciting to see. The low submission was from Hazelwood Construction at a value of $819,513.36. And after evaluating Hazelwood, based on their submission, and also helps that our design engineer had some experience working with them in other projects and was aware of, the type of company that they are, and therefore it is city staff's recommendation that this contract be awarded to Hazelwood. Regarding the Powell River Community Forest funding, as noted at the start, Powell River Community Forest has provided a letter confirming their financial support for the Seawalk. And this is at a total value of 1.53 million. And I would just like to clarify that this number was originally conceived based upon the original cost estimates that we had received from our design engineer, and also in anticipation that this work would be phased over a number of years. So that secondary, the phase 2 value did have some cost escalations added to it for the duration essentially that was expected before we began with that work, as well as to account for remaining archaeological monitoring, environmental monitoring, construction administration support, Tla'amin Nation culture and heritage technicians as required through construction to take us to the end of the project. Any unused funds from this project will remain in the reserve and be available for other opportunities as recommended by Community Forest and approved by Council. And as I'll get into in my next paragraph here, if the city is successful in the grant application that we are interested in submitting, some additional funds will be able to remain in that reserve and not be used on this project and available for future opportunities. So the Build Community Strong Fund has been identified as a significant funding opportunity for the Seawalk Restoration Project. If approved, this grant could potentially cover up to 50% of our remaining costs. That does include construction, contract administration, environmental archaeological support. So we do have a good opportunity to recoup some of the dollars that we invest in the Seawalk. I've confirmed that construction costs can be retroactively claimed. So, depending on when our start date actually is and when that grant award is announced, is not exactly relevant to us, being awarded that funding at the end of the day, which is a great thing for this project. One thing that I would like to note, which I think just potentially has not been discussed in past grant opportunities, is the opportunity cost that's associated with this type of opportunity. And of course, while this does require some staff time and investment in creating all the information, submitting, monitoring, maintaining, reporting the grant, we believe that the significant funding that is available is well worth the staff efforts. And of course, the time that's required could potentially have impacts to other projects, but we have reviewed and confirmed that we don't believe that there's going to be any major shifts or changes or any major critical path items that are affected with this grant submission. As I had noted, the Seawalk Restoration Project is included within the city's approved capital budget. The project funding currently is entirely Powell River Community Forest backed, but the hope is that we will also secure some of this Build Community Strong funding to offset some of the Powell River Community Forest costs. Based on the results of the tender and the other estimated remaining costs, of course, you'll see that there's a bit of a discrepancy between our estimated construction costs and our total available budget. It is city staff's recommendation that that total budget be left available for this project. The reason for that is that at the start of this project, due to the anticipated costs of the work, we did trim a few scope items out that would be desirable to include back in if we do have the funding to do it. For example, there's a few areas outside of the critical and optional zones where a few stones have come loose from tidal activity, winter storms, that sort of thing, and it would be beneficial to the community and this project if we were able to include some of those additional items that we had cut originally from scope. We are seeing that it's quite stringent, the planning, permitting, environmental archaeological assessment process to get into the intertidal zone. And so we do believe it's most advantageous to fit as much as we can in this current project. We are going to look at some improvements and enhancements that we can potentially make to the current design with our design engineer, but I don't want to commit today to what those might look like at the end of the day. Construction of the Seawalk Restoration Project is going to be delivered primarily through external contractors and consultants. Following completion, the restored shoreline and Seawalk infrastructure will continue to be maintained through existing city operations. The improvements are expected to reduce wave action, hopefully reducing frequency of overtopping or losing any gravel on that trail, which will hopefully at the same time reduce the amount of maintenance that is required down there. During construction, temporary pathway closures and traffic management measures are going to be required, and we will work with work with the contractor to minimize disruption to residents, businesses, and visitors through the appropriate communication, construction staging, and signage. And just the last item that I'll note is just that this project aligns with Council's strategic priority for a healthy community, providing facilities and staff for recreation and cultural activities that define our community and make it where people want to live, while working with nonprofit partners to grants and partnerships to achieve social goals. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor. One question through the mayor to staff. The Build Community Strong Fund is the source that have been identified as prime for this. I'm wondering, and this may be a question for the CAO or other staff, were there other projects that were considered for the Build Community Strong Fund that were put aside, and this one was decided that it was most suitable, and what was behind that decision?
Prime reason for selecting this project was the shovel-ready requirement that's associated with that grant fund. We did look at a couple other projects as well. Some of the other projects actually already did have some grant funding approved for them, and so it was determined that the Seawalk made the most sense for this particular project and this particular value.
Thank you.
Councillor Palm.
Thank you, Worship. First of all, I just want to say great job on a very comprehensive report. It has all the details fully involved and gives us a good look at where we're at. Start of this term, my phone was ringing, if not monthly, bi-monthly, as to where are the repairs on the Seawalk from our citizens. And just had to keep referring to staff and say, hey, we've got some turnover issues that we're dealing with and things aren't moving too quickly. And then we heard the ARC branch was involved, which further complicated the issue of restoration. But, you know, I can't jump up and down today because the money's there from, thank goodness, from our community forest as always. What they do for this community is outstanding. And if it wasn't for them, we would be in deep doo-doo financially. But the bottom line is we can't jump it up and down today because we're still waiting for an answer as to when we can start the project. Is there a time limit on the tender that has been accepted?
Based upon the uncertainty with the timing of the response from the BC Archaeology Branch, we actually did put a total completion requirement of May 31st of the following, this following year of 2027. So we have that contractor until then, essentially.
I understand in your report, the archaeological branch work there is being expedited.
That is correct.
Very good. Thank you very much for your report.
Councillor Siltka.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you very much for reporting about this. As Councillor Palm says, huge interest in our community. And we've heard over and over, actually recently, not so many questions, but people are patient and they still want it. So as I remember from the report, there is no conflict between receiving that report so the go for the project and the Building Community Strong grant. My real question is, can you explain briefly the difference between the phase 1 and phase 2. Is it riprap on the surface or end dumping? I don't know what that, or end dump. Not sure what that term means.
I more or less picture a large dump truck that is simply just dumping the rocks out the end of the truck, to put it very simply. It's not being keyed in properly like a puzzle, like you'll see in that north and south section. It's more or less a pile that has been pushed up against the revetment.
And that would be on the surface of the, instead of riprap, basically.
It still will be riprap. It will look, the intention is for it to look quite similar to what we have on the north and south sections. We actually are going to go with a bit more of a shallow slope, so it will stick out, a bit further, which will help to slow down that wave action and protect that part of the pathway better. But the intention is to end up with something that looks similar to what we have in those north and south sections.
Thank you.
Okay. Would anybody care to put forward motions? Yes, Councillor Isaac.
Thank you. I move that council receive the results of invitation to tender 1220-20-0704 for the Seawalk Restoration Project, that council award contract number 2320-20-2375 for the Seawalk Restoration Project to Hazelwood Construction in the amount of $819,513.36, excluding GST. That council received the Powell River Community Forest letter confirming its financial contribution toward the Seawalk Restoration Project in the amount of $550,000 for phase 2 and a total project amount of $1,530,000. And that council authorized staff to submit an application to the Build Community Strong Fund, BCSF, local impact stream in British Columbia, with a U, not an O, for funding in support of the Seawalk Restoration Project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Almeida, any further questions before we call the motion? All in favor? That's unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Joe.
The next item is 11.2, but just before we get there, I know that our CAO has had a challenging day. Would you like to excuse yourself at this point?
Well, thank you for the offer. I'm okay though. Thanks.
Two is Willington Beach Campsite Bylaw Update, Director of Parks.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to present this report to you and council. This report outlines proposed changes to the bylaw that regulates and fixes rates for the Willington Beach campsite. It follows direction from council in February of 2025 to increase revenues from recreation fees by 10%. Note that part of this direction has already been accomplished through the adoption of bylaw 2774-2025, which fixes rates for the recreation complex. For context, staff would like to remind Mayor and Council that the Willington Beach campsite is a unique operation, being the only year-round municipally run campground of its size and nature in British Columbia. It generates significant revenue for the city of Powell River, with an average revenue of $440,000 per year for the last 3 calendar years. Approximately 85% of this revenue is generated from visitors outside of our regional area. The proposed new rates will increase on average by 10% during our 2027 peak operating season, with modest increases of about 2.2% per year for the 2 years following. In the development of the new proposed rates, staff took the opportunity to right-size pricing inconsistencies, ensuring a logical and methodical approach to assigning specific values to amenities such as electrical hookups, water hookups, sewer hookups, and ocean views. Senior rates are proposed to remain at a 10% discount. Off-season extended stay rates are proposed to remain at a 20% discount. Overall, staff anticipate demand for the campsite to remain constant and that a 10% increase in revenues be recognized for the 26-27 camping season. Staff are recommending the bylaw 2823-2026 be given first, second, and third reading. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one question. It's been my understanding for a long time that CPI is not a good indicator of actual inflation of costs. we know what it's indexed to. So the question is it reasonable or is it wise? Like, obviously you've made the suggestion because you believe it is. So I'm wondering why we index to CPI, because it's a cost related factor here. Increasing our revenues from the campsite are designed to track costs and not the inflation of revenues basically for everybody. So is that did I express myself clearly? I always wonder.
Through the mayor, we didn't analyze that too deeply. Our typical standard practice is to increase roughly by that factor. However, in this case, this is a bit more of a revenue driver than it is an expense. That said, we will take that into consideration when we're looking at other fees and other increases, and perhaps be a bit more prudent in what we are comparing our raises to.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Councillor Out.
I want to thank you for the report, and is my recollection when we were talking about the budget and how much we're going to have to ask the taxpayers to pay, we were looking for additional sources of revenue that we could reasonably get without costing people in Powell River more money. And it made sense to me to vote to increase the revenue from the park, basically, to help us to avoid tax increases. Pretty good idea, I think. And I appreciate the report, and I hope it works.
Chair, just a quick historical perspective here. It wasn't too long ago when we were told by staff that we're producing a couple $100,000 in revenue, which was profit on an annual basis. I see your figure is 440. I know the operational cost, trying to get somebody to run the campsite has also increased. In terms of revenue generation out of that 440, what are we looking at on an annual basis?
I don't have those numbers specifically in front of me, but I can easily get them for you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. If there's no further discussion, I will call the motion. All in favor?
So I don't think it's been moved yet.
Oh,
We moved the motion?
Move the motion.
please move the motion.
The City of Powell River Bylaw 2823-2026 be given first, second, and third reading.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move to 11.3, Sanitary Sewer System User Rate Amendment Bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this report is to propose amending the Sanitary Sewer System User Rates Bylaw to establish rates for the Klamath Nation's connection to the city's sanitary sewer system. This is a great news story for the city. It shows regional cooperation that achieves economies of scale and spreads the cost across a larger user base. It was important to both parties while generating the rates that the rates be equitable for all users, and this made it a real pleasure to work with the Klamath Nation. The rates are outlined in the report, and they include all the major rates that current city payers pay. And this is included of debt for the construction of wastewater treatment plant. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Questions? Yeah, Councillor Doubt.
So, do these rates take into account the future maintenance of the facility, the wastewater treatment plant, and the piping that's in the ground? So we're going to have some revenue to maintain all of this as we go along?
Through the mayor, that is correct. They are included in those rates. So these rates are inclusive of everything that city user rates users would pay, and so that includes maintenance. That includes the debt for the construction. Eventually, once we start putting money towards a future wastewater treatment plant, it'll be inclusive of that as well.
Yes.
To the chair, your worship, just one pertinent point in your report for the public. even though these rates are not above what our citizens are paying, it needs to be pointed out that because of the Killahaman buy-in on the original grant funding received from federal and provincial sources for the rebuild of our sewer plant, Killahaman was a main player in our application. That should be pointed out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. One of the really salient points in this report, which if you read it carefully comes through clearly, very clearly, is that the frontage fees that the city pays are bulked into the one fee that Killahaman will pay per each residential unit or whoever it is that's billed for the service out there. When you just look at the two different charts that are presented here, they're really big different numbers, and I wonder if you just might want to go over that a little bit, specifically for the purpose of understanding in the community, because those numbers really are different, and I would anticipate that should bring up some questions.
Through the mayor, are you referring to the sanitary system user rates, the Schedule A that has the in effect?
Basically just it's stated in the report that the combined frontage taxes along with the user rates, so all three different rates that the city residents are paying are all bulked into one. I just thought that would be worth highlighting because of the differences in the numbers. I expect questions to be asked, and if those questions are answered before they're even asked, then that makes it real simple.
For sure.
In my experience.
So through the mayor, I can definitely add some highlights to that. So yes, a typical user in the city of Powell River essentially pays three fees. There's the user fee, and then there's the two frontage fees. And so the fee that we incorporated for the Klamath Nation is those three combined. And that was to make sure that there's equity across all parties and to make sure that all parties are contributing to the wastewater treatment plant equally.
Thank you very much.
Somebody care to put forward a motion? Councillor Southcott.
Move that the sanitary sewer system user rates bylaw 2733/2023, amendment bylaw 2824/2026 be given first, second, and third readings.
By Councillor Armida. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move to new business, 14.1. C3 meeting request regarding water sustainability plan for the Powell and Lois watersheds. To speak to this item.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can advise that this letter was passed forward through the Cathett Regional District and just added to the agenda for council input in regards to whether or not they were interested in participating. I would note that the actual motion, as noted in the letter, goes all the way back to May, and we're basically in August now. So for whatever reason, it's taken a while to get to council, but we're just looking for some direction from council in terms of if they would like to participate, noting that the chances of anything taking place before the end of this term are probably pretty slim. Thanks.
A question, this is under new business. I understand it's just here for information.
Through the chair, through the mayor, there is a request in the letter, and so the request is being brought forward for council consideration.
Councillor Isaacson.
I was just going to, unless there's, happy to pause for questions. I was going to propose a motion. All right. I move that council direct staff to respond positively to the request to participate in a C3 meeting to explore a water sustainability plan for Powell and Lewis watersheds.
Second by Councillor Almeida. Any further discussion? Councillor Southcott.
I have no objection to the motion, and there's no time frame here, so I'm confident that this could be added to a future C3 meeting as and when one occurs.
All in favor?
Your worship, just a clarifying question, please.
Yes.
In the memo to council here that is before us, there is mention of a nation with a different name than Tla'amin. Are we referring to Tla'amin Nation or is it another entity?
Shishal Nation, that's Seashelt.
Oh, interesting. So why does Seashelt Nation factor into our water resources?
Is it the geographic map that shows that there is some overlap within areas?
Oh,
Shishal Nation goes all the way up to include part of Lois and Palm Beach area and stuff. Yeah. I could speak to the motion. I think my reason for this is largely this is a regional district initiative, and so this is getting their staff to organize it, and it's us to respond positively. And so it'd be great for the future council to be able to attend a meeting, a C3 meeting, and have something tangible on the agenda to explore. And it would set up the next council for a specific topic to act in the spirit of CAFET working together. Thank you.
No other comments, questions? I'm going to call the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay, we'll now move to 14.2, which is the letter from the Mayor of Gibsons regarding updating Route 3, Horseshoe Bay to Langdale service levels for performance term 7. There's staff wish to comment on the letter.
Through your worship, I would just note that it was Councillor Palm who requested this letter to come forward. So I'm thinking that he probably has some comments to speak to it. Staff do not have any comments on the letter.
Councillor Palm, would you like to comment?
Your worship, yes, I did ask when I saw this letter of our CAO Sundance to add this to tonight's agenda for discussion. I think it is an excellent letter that has been crafted by the mayor of Gibsons, pointing out the growth of our population that was previously pointed out by our speaker earlier this evening. This staffing and whatnot, and how many fares are running on that Langdale run is up for debate, and a new term of reference will be coming, ironically, on April 1st, 2028. And that is quite ironic. Knowing the state of the Queen of Surrey, or otherwise referred to in the press as the Queen of Sorry, we are in need of another ferry on that route. And the bottleneck that exists needs to be overcome for not only the lower Sunshine Coast, but Powell River itself. And recently, Mayor, we have had 2 meetings in our community at the rec complex dealing with ferry traffic to Vancouver Island. And there are, because of the increase on reservation from 35% to 85%, that has a ripple effect on a lot of the passengers on that ferry, whether they have a motorcycle, whether they have a medical condition that they have to get to, or they just want to visit family out of town at a reasonable price, because now people are paying much more to reserve a spot on the ferry in order to travel. Now, I've dealt with ferry issues since the day I came on with this council. And the only way we got some serious traction on the issues of our ferries was through either our advisory committee with face-to-face meeting with BC Ferry personnel directly in town, or at UBCM, we were able to have a meeting with the Minister of Transportation under the Liberal government at the time, and we did manage to get new ferries. We did manage to get free passage for youth traveling on sports teams out of town through the school district taking that on out of their school district office, and kept rates reasonable. Now, what is going on in the ferry situation these days with the budgeting population and more visitors all the time needs to be addressed. And I think it should be upon council. I wish we had started up another ferry advisory internally when ours went down and they refused to come to town any further. Gibson's made a proactive stance and established their own. Good for them. We do not have that here, but we should establish something in the next term to serve this community better. We should advocate at UBCM. And a letter from us at this point in time, Your Worship, backing up Gibson's letter from the mayor and pointing out the need for better service on the Langdale Run, and also follow that up with an explanation of the citizens are not happy with the 85% reservation and the ripple effect that has had on so many. So I'm asking if council will consider having the mayor write a letter backing up the Gibson's letter to not only Randy Neal, but also the Minister of Transportation, the Honorable Mike Farnsworth.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'm gonna, through our CAO, is it appropriate before we finish discussion to have a motion come forward, or did that wait until our discussion is finished? And if Councillor,
I think either way would work. If someone wants to bring a motion forward and then speak to it, it's one thing. Or if council wants to respond to Councillor Palm's statements, but it's really up to the body to determine where to go with this.
okay, so Councillor Doubt, I'm going to ask Councillor Doubt to continue, and then we'll go back to Councillor Palm if he wishes to put forth.
I'm going to go with what I think the appropriate thing is as a city council is to have a motion to debate before we debate it. And I'd like to move that the mayor, or council requests that the mayor write a letter to Minister Randy Neal and the Minister of Transportation. Going to speak slowly, requesting their support in advocating for a formal reassessment of the contractual service for Route 3, Horseshoe Bay, Langdale, and the route from Earls Cove to Sultry Bay, as well as the route from Powell River to Comox, as part of the province's preparation for Performance Turn 7. If there's a seconder, I'll talk to that a little bit.
Seconded.
And I like the letter. It points out the dissatisfaction that everybody has with ferry service. Obviously, Gibson's is in a little different situation. They have their own local ferry advisory committee set up. We don't have one here. We have slightly different interests and other interests than Gibson's has, because we've got actually 3 routes that we depend on for any kind of transportation and any kind of highway to anywhere except our own city and area. And I think we should deal with that. We're talking about the reservation system, and I personally, I don't see a benefit in adjusting the reservation system. I think it's more of an added problem than it is a solution. And I don't think it's helped anybody, and it's just confused things. But I would like the mayor to write a letter to those ministers, point out that we're unhappy with the situation, and ask that all 3 of the routes that we're looking at and depend on here be considered in the performance term 7 evaluation that they say they're doing.
Great. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Palm.
Yes, I second Councillor Dout's motion, and we'll just add that the bottom line on the Gibson's letter is an ask of face-to-face communication with members of the BC Ferry staff in their jurisdiction, not on a screen like as what has recently transpired here, where that ask was made and there was no follow-through. That's a shame. They need to come and face the music. Thank you, Your Worship.
Mr. CAO, you had a...
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify that we had got the motion correct. Councillor Dout, could you please just confirm if we're missing anything on that?
Yeah, I'd like to add the route numbers in, but I don't have the 3 route numbers all memorized. I'm sure we could find them online. I bet Councillor Alameda's got it right in front of him.
17 is to Comox, and Route 7 is Salt Tree Bay, I believe.
Okay. Councillor Isaac.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I seem to remember additional words at the end of Councillor Dout's motion. It's in the lead up to performance term 7. I think you had referenced that beginning April 1, 2028.
Yep.
Okay.
So if I could speak to the motion, I as we all have heard many frustrations with the changes to the ferry service, the reservation system, the prices, and so many of those concerns are very valid. It's impacting people's ability to travel freely around the province. I did want to add to the conversation though, because I've actually heard a lot of appreciation from young families for the new system because many of the routes are much cheaper. And they're able to plan their summer holidays, their precious summer holidays with their children to go away to visit family. And so the booking on non-high demand routes are actually substantially cheaper when you're traveling with children. And so it's more, there's more to it than that. There are many frustrations that are very valid, but that's not the whole story. I've heard from many young parents how it's been lovely for their summer planning and their wallets. Thank you.
Great. Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm totally in favor with this letter, and oh, there's a small typo on Horseshoe. There we go. And I agree, conversations need to be had to improve our system, whether it's for the quantity of boats or the size of the boats or the frequency of the routes and stuff. Last year at UBCM, the CEO and a few other executives from BC Ferries was there in person. I was actually quite surprised how few councillors were actually at that session, but that gave me a chance to ask some questions, and one of those questions seemed to have led to a change. I don't know if I was fully responsible for it or not, but I'll take some credit. But to comment on some of what Councillor Isaacson said, being a family of 4 little ones, I can understand some of the frustrations that the community has had with reservations for those that don't have a credit card or easy access to a computer. It can be a little bit more challenging. But for those that have been planning trips, I can show physical evidence just from this past couple weeks, the difference it can make with reservation. In fact, just as we were having this conversation, looking at a ferry reservation for September, a round trip for one person, if reserved, is $80. That's for a round trip. And I paid $75 for one way in June. So I also believe, I could be wrong on this, I went back and read the memo that BC Ferries brought in May when they brought the new system in. I have a feeling, I'm not 100% certain, because I'll be honest, BC Ferries is not great at communication, so we definitely need a face-to-face meeting. But I believe that from that press release in May, this current system actually might just be a temporary thing for the summer. I think it was only supposed to go to mid-October. And so from my understanding, they were evaluating how they can relieve pressure on the middle routes of the day by offering advantages to travel on the morning and evening ferries. And when I last came across last week, I had a chance to speak to one of the staff members at the booth who agreed to my stance there that the afternoon sailings, due to some of the prepaids and the saver fares, was definitely a lot less congestion at the ferry terminal. And I think that's what BC Ferries was doing. Is there many places to improve? For certain. And as councillors and the future council, that's what we need to advocate for. But I think BC Ferries was attempting to try some different things to reduce congestion. Obviously room for growth, but I can comment it definitely wasn't a cash grab. So I'll be in favor of this though.
Okay, we have a motion. I'm going to call it. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. We'll now move to public clarification. And subject to rules of conduct, members of the public may ask questions to clarify items discussed during the meeting for a maximum of 2 minutes. Does anybody wish to come forward? Mr. Galinsky, do you have a question? Thank you very much. Do we have anybody online? No? Well then, I'm going to move adjournment of the meeting. Thank you very much for coming out.